Greetings. This is Doc Ock coming at you live and direct from Black Facts Headquarters Central this afternoon with another installment of Doc Ock at noon and 9. So, we have missed a few of our noontime shows, but we're trying to stay in the saddle. But you know what they say, if you get bucked off your horse, best thing to do is to get back on and keep on riding. Don't let that stop the show just because you got bucked off once or twice, maybe. So that's what we're going to keep doing here. We're going to keep right on riding. We are not hiding. We're just riding. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and do the needful before I have to start getting pleadful. Number one, give us a like if you are watching on Facebook. A thumbs up if you're watching on the tube, and then go ahead and spread the word so it can be heard from coast to coast without a boast that Black Facts is here and we cooking up a little toast, but we promise not to do a roast, or at least we won't roast you. Meanwhile, our proverb of the day, we don't have a proverb of the day today. What we have, though, is a translation of looks kind of like it's a poem, maybe in Kiswahili. Is that a Kiswahili poem? Yeah, it looks like it could be a Kiswahili poem. Matter of fact, I think it is. I'm not sure, though. But it does come from East Africa, and it looks like it comes from Kenya or Tanzania. Because it comes from Tanzania, as a matter of fact. So it's definitely Kiswahili, because that's the primary language in Tanzania. So the poem goes like this, and it's about the game of bow, which, as you already know, but I'll remind you one more. It's a game we play with a board and some seeds, and if you don't have a board, you can dig holes in the ground. If you can't dig holes in the ground, you can draw it on the ground with a piece of chalk. So you can literally play the game anywhere, anytime, with anyone. And so our little selection for today goes like this in English. When I played a game of bow on a well-decorated board, a strong defense I did allow in the center saturated. Now seeds were sown into a row, which in a few turns devastated. I said, Shurba, when I played it. Look at the bow game. I won. When I played this one mtaji, I played it satisfactor'ly until the seeds picked up by me filled up the cup entirely. It swept the board, then clear and free. No seeds in store were left to be. I said, Shurba, accordingly at the bow game, I have won. Now, if that's not a poem, I don't know what is. Definitely a poem, not a proverb, but definitely a poem. And it's all about the game of bow. And it's called Muyaka. Oh, this is the person that wrote it is Muyaka bin Haji from Tanzania. Muyaka bin Haji. Okay, so apparently he was a Muslim and he'd taken the Hajj. That's how you get the name Haji. All right, so let's move on. Our story for today. So we're finishing up our month of Black inventors, healers, and scientists. And it has been a very tough month. It's been difficult to actually pull together all the materials that we needed. We started off reading a story about this woman here, Janet Harmon Bragg, and the first time we tried to read it, we were somewhat sleep deprived and we had a hard time keeping our eyes open. So we're going to pick up where we left off and read a little bit more of her story and just see what kind of experiences Janet Harmon Bragg had that led her to a life of flight in the air, as well as a career in nursing. She was a nurse and she was an aviator. So very talented woman, and definitely a woman of science. And so we start off today on our slideshow with pow, an eclipse of the sun. That's right, an eclipse of the sun. I love this picture. It looks like a black hole, but you can't see black holes, and they wouldn't have that nice corona going all around them. Yeah, there we go. So, we left off, we were learning about Janet and her life as a youth growing up in a place called Griffin, Georgia. Griffin, Georgia, one of those Georgia towns. And she would have been growing up during the days of segregation for sure. She talks about her home life and how they had a garden full of all kinds of vegetables and some fruit trees. Peaches, you know. Georgia's the peach state. Gotta have some lovely peaches. Gotta have them. Apples, cherries. And at one time, my father opened a little grocery store next to the house. He said we ate up all the profits, which we did. Later, he closed the store and gave it to a woman from Tupelo, which is right near One Below, Mississippi. Janie Beeks, who had married one of his best friends. She wanted to teach school and turned it into a classroom, a little private school. It turned out to be very good. I don't remember how long she taught there. When I was a child, 4 or 5 years old, I sometimes played alone on the lawn. I would lie on the grass and look up in the sky, and when there were big cumulus clouds, I always heard a song in my mind. There's not a friend like the lonely Jesus. Only I thought it was the long-legged Jesus. And I would imagine him walking over those clouds with his long legs. And it was like snow or slush over the clouds. I thought I would like to go up there and see what it was like. Years later, when I was taking flight lessons, I thought about it again. But I was always told we were an ecumenical family. Everybody went to a different church. My father said, as long as we serve the Lord. My mother and one sister were Baptist. Another sister was a Methodist. My father, Pat, and I were Episcopalians. My other 2 brothers visited any church where their girlfriends were members, but they went to church. Father didn't like the less formal churches because the members shouted. I liked the music at these churches because it was kind of swingy. We were supposed to be really proper going to church. In the Baptist church, they did shout. And some old sister sitting next to you would feel the spirit throw her arms and knock you about like a tumbleweed. Then we would start relaxing. And the next church would be maybe the Methodist, which was not quite as shouty. The Episcopal church was the quietest, really quiet. The Episcopalians. See, those are the ones you really got to worry about, the ones that are really quiet because you never know what they're thinking. After the Episcopal church was organized in my mother's kitchen, then the members built the church itself. My father laid the foundation, and the diocese sent a priest, Father John Brooks. He came from the West Indies to take charge of the church and lived in our house. My father asked some of the members who had helped build the church and their friends to come for a little meeting with the priest. A charming man, handsome, with a delightful accent. My mother had prepared a lovely supper. She suggested we open with a prayer, but Father Brooks couldn't find his prayer book. Mother, an old Baptist lady, got up and said one of those fine prayers which go straight up to heaven. I didn't know whether I wanted to be part of the Episcopal church, because it was so staid. But once the church was finished, St. Stephen's, we built a school, and I transferred from the public school to St. Stephen's Episcopal School. It was a private school with good, strict teachers. While I was growing up, we had only one high school for blacks in Griffin. When it was my time to go, my father decided to send me down to Fort Valley, Georgia, to an Episcopal boarding school. It was not too far away, but we had to go by train. It was a good school where I did exceptionally well in math, physics, and science, which served me well throughout my adult life, both as a registered nurse and in my avocation, flying. The teachers were strict but caring and patient, which meant we had to succeed. I realized that with a good foundation, I could build anything on it. The campus was nice, with 5 or 6 buildings, a chapel, and the president's home, a building for classrooms, and also a girls' and a boys' dormitory. I enjoyed it very much. One of my teachers, a Canadian, was fond of me and liked my athletic ability. I can give Janet Harmon a football and she can carry it across the field, he said. I played basketball and volleyball and all the sports for girls. I was a very good tennis player too. Now, you have to keep in mind, back in the day, when in the early days of basketball was not actually a boys' sport. Basketball started off as a girls' sport. So all you manly basketball players, just something to think about. What can I say? Pat, who had gone to high school in Griffin, came to see me almost every month. Janet, your brother is here. Someone would call up to the 3rd floor where my room was, and I would tear down the steps, not like a lady, and hug him, knocking his packages all over the ground. He would always have a big box of food and clothing from my parents. In history class, one of my classmates who sat behind me never studied. I don't know whether he was just one of those smart fellas. When the teacher called on him to recite the assignment, he would get up and ad-lib. When we had to turn in our papers so she could correct them, he never had a paper. Janet, give me your paper, he would say. And I would say, I'm not going to give you my paper. You take it up there and let her see it and bring it back to me. Don't put your name on it. I did just what he told me to do. Guess I was kind of sweet on him. One girl whom I met again years later when Lena Horne became so popular said, you must remember Lena Horne. I think she was there at Fort Valley when you were, but I didn't remember her. In school, we had a Blue Vein Society, and I was the president. When the president and principal, Professor Harold Hunt, heard about this Blue Vein Society, he ordered us to his office. When we arrived at his book-filled room, he asked, who's the leader of this group? Everyone pointed to me. There were different colors in this Blue Vein Society. Lillian Green, a very pretty girl, was really light-skinned, and Maddie Glasgow was olive-colored. Professor Hunt put an end to it quickly. He demanded, do you know what it means? I said, no, but we've all got blue veins. And he said, I can't see your veins at all. Very curtly, I replied, but they are blue. We didn't know what blue vein meant, but we liked the sound of it. High school at Fort Valley was a turning point in my life. The teachers, all very competent, sent us to charm classes, something I needed real bad. They taught us how to sit and stand and be quiet, how to get ourselves all together. It was a big improvement. For when I finished my first year and returned home for the summer, everybody said, what's wrong with Janet? She's changed. She thinks she's something because she went away to school. But it wasn't that. It was just the training I was getting and that I needed after being such a tomboy. Besides, I was growing up. My parents knew that sending their child to a boarding school was the right thing to do. During summer vacation, after church, every Sunday, we went to one of our friends' houses for dinner, or they came to our house. It was very nice. All my friends were growing up. My friend Margaret Stokes' family had a funeral home. Margaret and I wanted to go to a dance one night out in the country someplace. We had permission to go, but we had no way to get there. My brother Pat took his girl in our car, and Margaret's brother took their car with his girl. Margaret said, "Daddy, you know one thing? Sam took the car. He could have taken us. Why didn't he?" "Well, no young man on a date wants his sister along." "Think about that." He replied. "We don't have a way to get out there," she said. "Then take the hearse," Mr. Stokes said. Well, we did. Margaret drove. Everyone who saw the big black hearse thought somebody had died. It was just fun for us. It always was really clean fun. There was one older fellow who always had a big car, Biddy Phillips. He owned a Hudson Super 6, a black 4-door monster. "This is my Hudson Super 6, he'd say, and take a gang of us out in the country for a drive. Once we got way out in the country somewhere, maybe 6 miles from home. "Oh, I'm out of gas," Biddy said. We all started looking at each other. "I'm out of gas and I don't know what we're going to do." Margaret, Cora Nelms, and I had to be home before dark, and the sun was just about its own width from the horizon. Oh, Lord, don't let the sun catch you crying. Don't let the sun catch you crying. We ran all the way home. Though we were socializing with others our own age, we still had to be home when our parents wanted us to be. No doubt about that. Biddy was a very comical person. One time he was caught speeding. The police arrested him and he had to go to court. When the arresting officer told the judge Biddy had been speeding, Biddy said, "Oh no, Judge, he's wrong." He said I was doing 45 miles an hour. "Judge, I was doing 55 miles an hour, and I wanted to see how many miles I could get out of that car because that's my Hudson Super 6. Well, the judge cracked up and ruled case dismissed. Don't do it again. In Griffin, we had our own movie theaters. The first one was down Slayton Alley, where we didn't have to go up in what we called the Buzzard's Roost, the segregated section, to see the pictures. Jimmy Gray, a photographer, was in charge of the theater. We saw all the same pictures shown on the main street. Later, a Mr. Conley built a beautiful large theater for black folks on one of our main streets. We saw all the great pictures of the day there. We had a pianist to accompany the silent films and great popcorn and candy in a very nice lobby. After I graduated from Fort Valley in 1925, my parents sent me to Spelman Seminary, later college in Atlanta, GA, rather than to Tuskegee Institute, which my sisters had attended. Like them, I was a home ec major, but after the first year, I switched to nursing. I think I was influenced by an older cousin, Pauline Dickens Hall, a nurse who had graduated from Tuskegee. She looked so gorgeous in her heavily starched white uniform and seemed to know everything. She was tall and stately, and when she walked, the starch was so stiff she seemed to rattle. She gave talks on health to students in the public schools, and I was very much impressed with her knowledge. My cousin Francis Scott, later Moore, and I spent the summer with Pauline, then a public health nurse in Macon, Georgia. We were sweet on the same little fellow. Francis said to me, "Don't let TC kiss you," because Han, or I don't know if that's Han or, well, her name was Pauline, is a nurse, and she can tell. She knows everything. I became doubly impressed. I thought Pauline was a clairvoyant, but I found out differently after I became a nurse. Spelman's McVicker Hospital was small but well equipped, and every division was outstanding. The staff doctors were good, and the head nurses and teachers were dedicated white professionals. There was no playing around for nursing students. We had to work, knowing there was a 6-month probationary period. If we didn't come up to par, we were eliminated. In my class of 12, only 2 of us were left after 6 months. My roommate, Frances Lucille Davis from Mobile, Alabama, and I. We roomed together for our last 3 years. McVicker had no interns, so the nursing students had to assume their duties, assisting in operations. That was fascinating. We really knew our Grey's Anatomy. We knew materia medica. We took care of all post-operative cases, changing dressings, putting in drainage. We were trained in many medical techniques that were important to the welfare of the patients. Our senior year was a wrangler. We were on call at all times and in any part of the hospital. We had to make the right decisions about who to call, as almost all of the emergencies happened at night. All of the doctors, the head nurses, and the hospital superintendent had to rely upon the black student nurses for most of the everyday and every night work. Much of the time, we could and would take care of an emergency ourselves, write it up, go back to bed, and get up at 6 a.m. ready to report for 7 a.m. duty. I had excellent super training at Spelman. Today, if I were to go to Spelman, I think I would be part of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration's program there to encourage black women to enter aerospace and science fields. During my day, though, there was no space program, and women majored in home ec, nursing, music, and literature. Women were not encouraged to study the sciences, period, dot. So if you want to know why I haven't been reading more about black women in science, well, there's part of your answer right there. It was somewhat limited. I therefore left Spelman well trained for a career in nursing, but I was relatively unprepared for the working world's hardships and injustices. And there you have the end of that chapter. And that was that called, did that chapter have a name to it? Yeah, that chapter there is I Become Janet. So this is how Harmon Bragg became Janet Harmon Bragg. We'll read some more from that story again tomorrow. And in the meanwhile, we're going to go ahead and clock out right about now. We've gone over our time. We read a little bit longer than usual, but I wanted to go ahead and just finish that chapter off so we could at least complete that chapter. In the meanwhile, all of you, all of our supporters out there, you know what we need y'all to do. Go ahead, give us a like if you're watching on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, and then go ahead and subscribe to the Tubular Black Facts channel if you haven't done so already. And I'm just going to say peace out to Imani Zaire. We see you out there. And I see Connie Moreland out there. And I don't know who else I see out there. Whoops, wait, there goes, what's going on with Connie? There goes Connie. All right. And I don't know who else is out there watching, but we give thanks for all of our supporters. Appreciate your watching and hope you enjoy our stories. We're going to continue on. We'll be black tonight at 9. So look for us here where everything is going to be real fine as we continue to read more about Biddy Mason, another healer and traveler, not in the airways, but on land. In the meantime, peace out without a doubt.